Hello and welcome to GT Cup's Super Saturday Live, where we have a 46 car capacity grid here at the world famous Brands Hatch circuit. Better to spend a bank holiday weekend than in England's Garden, Kent, and the legendary Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. It's the second weekend of racing in the GT Cup. It's been condensed into one Super Saturday where we are going to have two pit stop races for you. The first one coming up very, very shortly. Before we get into it though, here's a reminder of what happened a few weekends ago at Donington.
We get the 2021 season underway. Side by side. Oh, and into the gravel. Richard Chamberlain gets turned around. Now the difficulty is working through the traffic. Up the inside as they head through Coppice, side by side as they go down into the chicane. Charlotte Gilbert, she's off, she's out of the race. Again, they charge their way up towards Redgate. Gaining on the way out of the chicane, looking for the lead of the group. Great battles wherever you look. It looks as though it's going to be another dominant win for the Aber Commercials Mercedes.
A car that dominated at Donington was the number 88 Mercedes of Richard and Sam Neary. Well, they're back again this weekend, but in a slightly different capacity and with something extra to celebrate. Sam, Richard, lovely to see you here at Brands Hatch after a tremendous session at Donington.
Yeah, thanks very much. We're glad to be here and the weather's good, so that's always helpful.
Yeah, Donington went really well and we're back again, so really looking forward to it.
It's a little bit different, isn't it, from Donington to now? Because at Donington you were on an invitation, but now, of course, you've decided to go full season. Tell us about that.
Yeah, we had such a good weekend at Donington. We decided to go and do a full season entry and try and win the championship. So we'll give it our all and see how we get on.
I mean, you're actually doing pretty well, aren't you? Because overall, you're at third position currently, I believe.
Yeah, it's gone well so far. We sort of tripped ourselves up on one race, but we're hoping to put that right this weekend. We'll be up against it this weekend, though. We inherit a 20-second extra long pit stop this weekend in the first race, so we've got quite a bit to do in this first race.
Yeah, okay. Now, one thing I did want to say, Sam, is there's extra excitement, isn't there? Because you've just had some really exciting news this week.
Yeah, I've just became a BRDC Rising Star, which is incredible. It is a privilege to be noticed by such a prestigious club and to be recognised for what I'm doing. So it does mean a lot to be part of the club, and hopefully I can get a few wins here and show that I deserve to be on the scheme.
I was going to say, does that put extra pressure on you this weekend now?
Yeah, no. Pressure's not a big thing, you know. I've been racing for a while now, so it's just a job you need to do. You get out there, have some fun.
Yeah, you must be proud, Dad.
Yeah, immensely. Yeah, you know, his career so far has gone, phenomenally well so far. Yeah, really good.
Well, we're running just a few minutes behind, and the cars are all still in the garages actually at the moment, waiting to go out onto the circuit. Sam, who you just saw, has had a brilliant qualifying session this morning and is on pole position, as you will see in the grid once they get out there. Now, 46 cars. It's huge. It's going to go as far as the eye can see. Surely, Mark Werrell, that is a record-breaking grid. Can you hear me, Mark? Well, I don't know if you were able to hear Mark at all there, but I'm sure he was giving some good information. Good to hear him. But somebody that has been here on another record-breaking grid, as far as I'm aware, is this car here, Adam Carroll. This fantastic McLaren, the number 77. Now he is going to be sitting a bit further back on the grid when they go out, right at the back actually, so get a good look at it now. Well, you can, because of course it's the amateur drivers that have to go out and do all the qualifying. So yeah, Adam is going to be driving, and of course it's a pit stop race, so it means that the pro drivers do go out as well. Now, it's a little bit different this time round because it's Super Saturday and we're having 2 pit stop races as opposed to the usual sprint. We've had to condense everything down. So to explain a bit more about how it all works and the grid, I'm going to hand you back over to Mark Werrell. Mark.
Thanks, Michelle. Yeah, apologies, you've got me now. You're right, so back to your first question. It is a record-breaking grid here for the GT Cup Championship. The last full grid that we had here at Brands Hatch that was anything like this was way back in 2009, and that was when the GT Cup Championship supported what was the A1GP single-seater series at the time. And here, this weekend, the largest grid we've ever had, and amazingly, as you just mentioned, the A1GP champion way back then in 2009, racing for Team Ireland, Adam Carroll. And Adam Carroll's out in GT Cup this weekend. So yeah, the format for this one, it's 2 pit stop races that we will have. We'll talk about the grid and we'll go through success seconds, which Sam Neary alluded to as well. But the format is that Group 1 on the first pit stop race will be coming into the pits slightly earlier. So they will come into the pit lane slightly earlier. Now, Group 1 is for those cars that compete in Group GTO, Group GT3 and Group GTC. So they will come into the pit lane between the 19th and the 23rd minute of this race that will be coming up. A 50-minute race it is. Then a little bit later on in the session, Group 2 will come in. They will come in between the 23rd and the 28th minute of the race, and those for the cars that work themselves into Group GTB, Group GTH and Group GTA. And the reason that the pit stop window is split is because, as you can imagine, here at Brands Hatch, it's a fairly long pit lane, but it's a tight pit lane, and there's not enough garages to accommodate everybody, so it's far better to split the pit window for safety reasons. It means not everybody descends into the pits at the same time, and we have sort of 2 batches of pit stops in reality. Just makes it safer for all of the team members down there, all in high vis, but it's a very crammed pit lane if everybody were to appear at the same time. So the cars are making their way out onto the grid. There is Michael Igo behind the wheel of the WPI Motorsport Lamborghini. Phil Keane is the driver that's chatting to him. Phil is the pro and therefore can't take part in the first part of this endurance race, the pit stop race. The pros have to go in, as Michelle alluded to, for part 2 of the race. Those 2 will be partnered up in the British GT Championship as well throughout the course of the 2021 season. So several other cars that will be racing here in that very series in a few weeks' time are joined on the entry list for this weekend, but Michael and Phil were also with us at Donington Park as Michael continues to gain valuable experience. He's a very quick amateur driver. He's only been racing for 3 years as well, Michael Igo, but certainly he's going to be one to watch in this race, himself and Phil Keane. And they will line up on the outside of the front row of the grid alongside the drivers we were hearing from that were chatting to Michelle earlier on, which was Sam and Richard Neary. So here's the Feathers Motorsport, Aston Martin. James Guest will start that car. He's got former Le Mans Series Le Mans winner Darren Turner alongside him. Good to see GCAT racing back as well. Seamus Jennings and Greg Caton, who joined us sporadically over the course of the last 2 or 3 seasons, they're back out with their car. The number 67 car is going to be Simon Orange for this race. Simon partnered up with Josh Jackson once more. But they, as it's 2 endurance races, one will do 1 race in the Ginetta, the other one will do it in this orange McLaren that's coming up now. Nice to see Alan Purbrick back as well, and David Bryce with their Alp Seika as well. That's the dark blue car with the orange flash right the way down the centre of it. So the green flag waves at the end of the pit lane. You can see all of the cars nosing out of their garages. Some of them still up on the air jacks, still waiting for the tyres to be fitted. The tyres will be preheated. The Control Pirelli slick tyres that they all run will be preheated in ovens out the back of the garages to bring the tyres up to temperature, so it's not a cold tyre that goes on most of these cars. They will be preheated, and then of course they are able to get further temperature into them, and in particular the brakes as well on this outlap, ready to line up on the grid that will be coming up very, very shortly. So this is the 5th round of the championship. All the Super Saturday is all about endurance racing in reality. The 2 pit stop races that we've got, we don't have any of the sprint racing formats here over the course of the day. So we can then guide you through the way that the grid is going to line up for this first race of the day in the GT Cup Championship, round 5 of the series. Pole position will go the way of Sam and Richard Neary. It will be Richard that will start, and alongside is Michael Igoe with the Lamborghini. Row 2 of the grid is Alan Bannon and Leo Majitsky. Leo, a former British GT champion, the 2 Barwell cars out, really using this as a test session for British GT a couple of weeks later. 5th on the grid is Richard Chamberlain, the leading car in Group GTO, and for company he's got alongside the Steve Burgess driven Raw Motorsports Radical RXC. Row 4 of the grid is Lucky Kira and John Dillon, and row 5 of the grid will be Seamus Jennings, who will line up alongside Matt Manderson. Will start for Ultimate Speed. Onto the 6th row of the grid. On the inside of the 6th row of the grid, Graham Tilley will start, and for company he's got Stuart Proctor. Stuart's son Lewis will take over later on. And row 7 of the grid, new to the series for this weekend, Nick Jones on board the Team Parker Porsche to start with John Seal for company. The 8th row of the grid, that is where we'll see Richard Marsh starting, and alongside Richard Marsh, Jensen Lunn will jump on board the Top Cats Racing Lamborghini for part 1 of the race. Row 9 of the grid will be Alan Purbrick and Sam Olpass with Henry Dawes, and scheduled to start the car alongside will be Chris Hart for Make It Happen Racing. Henry Dawes and Chris Hart, the leading cars in Group GTA and qualifying. The 11th row of the grid, Charlotte Gilbert alongside Craig Wilkins. Row 12 of the grid sees number 17. That will be started by Patrick Collins alongside number 1, which is Josh Jackson for this race. Row 13 of the grid is Ian Duggan alongside Simon Orange. Row 14 will be Paul Bailey and Morgan Tilbrook. And row 15 will be James Guess and Chris Kemp. Remember, the pros cannot start in these pit stop races. The next row of the grid, onto row number 16, it will be John Whitehouse and Andy Roby. Then it's Nick Phelps, who lines up alongside the number 16 car, which is going to be started by Justin Armstrong. The next row of the grid, Mike Price lines up alongside Ian Humphreys, and then we move on to 37th and 38th positions on the grid, Mo Ritson and Alex Stevenson, with David Holloway and Col Cavers on the 20th row of the grid. Still they keep coming, James Simons and Chris Murphy on row number 21. It's Mark Hopton and Ian Campbell on row number 22, and David Frankland will start at the wheel of the 24/7 Motorsport Porsche at the back of the grid, and that gives you the full 46 cars that took part in a very busy qualifying session. It was actually split into 2 separate qualifying sessions, one group qualifying and then the other group going out, largely because 46 cars on the grid around the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit, which is just under 2.5 miles. It's 2.4332 miles. Yes, clear space would be very much at a premium, so the officials taking the correct decision, the championship organisers, so as to split qualifying into 2 sessions. So the cars starting to line up on the grid. The car that's towards the bottom of your screen is the beautiful looking Radical RXC in the hands of Steve Burgess for part 1 of the race, partnered up with Ben Dimmock once more. They've been very successful in the Radical Challenge Championship over the years, racing in another series last year. And you can see, a bit like the M25 on a Friday afternoon, isn't it? The cars at a halt, slowly being held there because we need to sort of release them slowly onto the grid, and then they'll have to weave their way around everybody that's already lined up there. We can see Richard Chamberlain's beautiful looking Porsche 935 coming into position down at the front corner of the grid. Nice to see Richard back in the championship, having not raced at all over the course of last year. The car, when it goes rather well, to say the least. But Richard had a few problems at Donington Park. Michelle Livings, though, is down there on the grid.
I am. Yes, right, we're here, and it's going to take a little bit of time because there's so many cars to get everyone sorted out, but you can see they're gradually trickling through. We're still waiting for our pole position. It's actually not Sam Neary, it's Richard Neary that's going to be driving first. Sam's right here. I'll dive in and have a chat with him actually right now, seeing as you're standing here with nothing better to do, Sam. Exactly. So Dad's up first.
Yeah, he's starting the race. He did really well in warm-up. He seems really fast, so like Donington, he seems like he's got good grips on the car, so hopefully he can sort of pull out a gap. We have a big pit stop penalty, so we'll try our best to try and claw that back and see where we get to in the end.
Yeah, you were just saying how it was quite a big walk for you. You're at Garage 27, aren't you?
yeah, I thought it was more tiring than actually driving. Yeah, no.
Well, make sure you conserve your energy because you're going to need it, that's
Definitely.
for sure.
Thank you.
All right, I'll let you get ready because here he comes. There's that fabulous green Mercedes number 88 of the Nearies, taking pole position. Now, I believe also, Mark, that we have a non-starter, car number 18, which is Michael Igo. We were looking earlier actually in the garages, I believe is not going to be in this race. So we've got a gap next to number 88, our pole position. I'll just double check here. Is that right that we've got a non-starter?
Pardon me?
Is that right? We've got a non-starter?
Non-starter car 18 is going to start from the pit lane.
Lovely. Okay, he's going to start from the pit lane, Mark.
Well, that's going to make it very interesting then for Michael Igo.
Exactly.
He's going to have to thread his way through everybody. That might be the right decision though, Michelle. 46 cars on the grid into turn one. It could be difficult, couldn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, literally, now that they're pretty much, lined up, as I look, you can't see the end of the grid. It goes round the bend. It's absolutely incredible just looking at it here. I mean, it's a fantastic vantage point, obviously, so I'm quite lucky. But it is so impressive to see this many cars. Unbelievable.
And I think the strength in depth this year as well, Michelle. GT Cup has always been very, very popular, but we've got such a strong field. You look across any of the groups this year, and you can't pick a single driver or a single car combination, can you?
No, not at all. It's really, really quite difficult. I'm just going to see if there's anybody else I can chat to, but everyone's sort of gearing up and ready to go, I think. Here we go. Driver number 5. Oh, that's Richard Chamberlain there, actually. Always recognise this car, the fabulous orange Porsche, number 5, Richard Chamberlain. Of course, he had to bow out when we were at Donington, didn't he? But he's looking a little bit happier and obviously done quite well in qualifying because he's right up near the front here for this race. Oh, okay, well there we go. We've got a bit of a warning siren going off here, so it might be my cue to get off the grid very, very shortly. Should we have a quick chat and just see if Richard? Good luck, how are you feeling?
Thank you very much, I'm feeling fine. I'm going to be pretty worn out at the end of this, but at the moment I'm feeling fine.
Because you're doing it all by yourself, aren't you?
Yes, no other person's stupid enough to share with me.
Bless him, always. And of course it's not just one pit stop, it's 2 pit stop races today, bless him. So best of luck to Richard and his fabulous car. I just love the orange, I don't know what it is, it's the retro vintage sort of, it appeals to me, I think, Mark.
You can't miss it, you can't miss it.
You can't.
That car
great.
can trace its roots back to the 1970s, of course, and it's been developed so much by CTR Developments over the year, Richard Chamberlain and the team, and is so strong. As you said, he's right at the sharp end of the grid. But again, to emphasise the point, it's not easy in any group. To the left of Richard is the Black Radical. That's second quickest in Group GTO, so that's the lead battle of Group GTO potentially.
Yeah. All right, well I think, Mark, that we're going to be asked to leave the grid shortly now, so I'm going to head off and I'm going to hand everybody over to you, to your capable hands, to take us through this 50-minute race.
Thanks, Michelle. Yep, so the cars will be heading off onto the formation lap very shortly indeed. We can see the car of Richard Neary sitting there on pole position with the gap alongside where we should have that car that you can see in the pit lane there. That's the WPI Motorsport Lamborghini that's sitting patiently in the pit lane rather than taking up its correct position on the outside of the front row of the grid. Michael Igo and the team have opted to start off the back of the grid. Now that might be because there's a slight technical issue with the car and they don't want maybe that to cause a problem in what is an enormous grid, or it may well be on a big full grid they just want to stay out of harm's way, start from the pit lane, thread their way through and get Michael, say he's only in his 3rd year of motorsport, Michael Igo, working with 3 times British GT runner-up Phil Keane this year in the championship. Maybe it's a bit of getting him used to traffic management around Brands Hatch. It's a tight, it's a twisty circuit, it's not easy to overtake, and maybe the team have thought that's what we want Michael to do. That if he's got a slight Achilles heel, it's not me being negative at all, but if that's what they perceive as an area where he perhaps needs to improve traffic management, start at the back, overtake lots of cars, gain that experience, because of course their main focus is not necessarily GT Cup this weekend because they're not in for the full season. They did Donington, they did here, and I think they're coming to Alton Park with us, but their main focus will be when British GT comes here in a couple of weeks' time. So off goes the safety car onto the rolling lap. We've given you the grid already, but let's guide you through success seconds for cars that are out there. The car that starts from pole position, come the pit stop window, it will spend not 60 seconds stationary in the pits, plus the 20 seconds it takes to drive through the pit lane at the pit lane speed limit. it remained stationary for an extra 20 seconds on top of that. So Richard Neary, 20 seconds, success seconds in the pit stop. The Lamborghini, started by Michael Ago from the pit lane, will have an extra 15 seconds when they come into the pits. Row 2 of the grid, Adam Ballon for Barwell Motorsport, an extra 5 seconds, and his teammate alongside Leo Machitsky, an extra 5 seconds as well. Row 3 of the grid, Richard Chamberlain's orange Porsche, no extra seconds to worry about, but the Black Radical alongside, started by Steve Burgess, has an extra 20 seconds. Row 4 of the grid, Lucky Kira and John Dillon, no extra seconds to worry about. Row 5 of the grid, Seamus Jennings for GCAT Racing, an extra 20 seconds, but Matt Manderson alongside, nothing to worry about. Row 6 of the grid, the Nissan of Graham Tilley, will remain stationed for an extra 5 seconds before he hands over to not Wiltshire Girtha as it would usually be, but Senan Fielding for this weekend. And alongside is the Balfe Motorsport McLaren, Stuart Proctor, no additional seconds to worry about. Row 7 the grid, Team Parker Racing, Nick Jones, an extra 20 seconds in the pits. John Seal, going to Abbey Eaton alongside, an extra 20 as well. And it's the same on row number 8. The Team Hard Porsche, an extra 20 seconds in the pit lane. And also Jensen Lunn handing over to Warren Gilbert for Top Cats Racing, an extra 20 seconds. Row 9 of the grid, nothing for Alan Purbrick to worry about, but Jeff Steele Racing and Sam Olpass alongside, an extra 6 seconds. Row 10 of the grid, we've got the Century Motorsport Ginetta of Henry Dawes, an extra 6 seconds in the pit lane. Chris Hart alongside, nothing to worry about. Charlotte Gilbert has no extra seconds to worry about on row number 11, but the number 80 car of Craig Wilkins has an extra 10 seconds in the pit lane. I don't think I'm going to get through them all, so I'll just pick out the rest of the cars that have penalties. Number 67, which is Simon Orange, an extra 20 seconds in the pit lane. Number 28, Paul Bailey, an extra 15. It's the same for Morgan Tilbrook and the 66 Mercedes. The 82 Feathers Motorsport Aston Martin James Guess, an extra 20 seconds. The Stanbridge Motorsport Lamborghini of Chris Kemp, an extra 15. Then we move on to the Gemini Motorsport Marcos of Andy Roby, an extra 15. And that's probably all we've got time for now, because this enormous grid of 45 cars are about to be unleashed at full race pace for the first time this weekend onto the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. Round 5 of the 2021 GT Cup Championship is about to get going here at Brands Hatch. The safety car peels its way into the pit lane. Richard Neary controlling the pace at the front. Mercedes on its own on the front row of the grid. 2 Lamborghini Huracans on row number 2. It's the Porsche and the Radical on row number 3 for the lead of Group GTO in the early stages. And the lights go out and away we go racing up towards Paddock Hill Bend for the first time. Richard Neary with his nose out front, I'm sure, as they head up towards the first corner and charge their way through. And everybody just needs to tread gingerly on this first lap or so, make sure that they don't trip over each other and keep things clean, and that looks as though that's what's happened so far. Everybody just erring with an element of caution as they turn their way through the tight right-hander at Druids. Pick up a place if you can, but don't do anything silly in the early stages. And as I mentioned on the build-up to this one, traffic management is absolutely going to be a key. Whether you are being lapped or lapping, the key will be not to lose too much time. And everybody so far has done exactly what I hope they would do, and that is remain fairly sensible. There's a little car on the grass there. That looked as though that was John Whitehouse's McLaren, former champion, who was just on the grass there, but gathered up just a slight moment as they now charge their way down towards Hawthorns for the first time. The GT3 specification cars in Group GT3 all out front at the moment, with Richard Neary pulling away from the 2 Barwell Motorsport prepared Lamborghinis that sit behind Adam Ballon and Leo Machitsky. There is a spin for Alan Purbrick, I'm afraid, and that is the Alp Racing Seika that has had a rotation. That's on the exit of Hawthorns, and thankfully everybody either braking drivers right or drivers left to avoid the stricken Seika that sits facing the wrong direction in the middle of the circuit. Hopefully he can get the car fired back up. So Richard Neary over the start-finish line. The thundering noise of the Mercedes, the GT3 specification Mercedes, leads the race at this stage. It is going to be Leo Machitsky who's there in second position. Adam Ballon comes through in third place. The leading car of Group GTO, which is Steve Burgess, and the Radical is there in fourth position. John Dillon's in fifth. Richard Chamberlain, the Porsche, I'm afraid to say, has slipped to sixth after the first lap, but he's running second in Group GTO at this stage. So Richard Neary looking to try and press on. This car has not been without its troubles this weekend. In testing yesterday, they had an issue with the car, which, talking to Sam Neary as I was doing yesterday, suggested they might not even make the race. They were having to sort out some repairs on the car to do with the chassis, which did concern them that that might mean that they couldn't get involved in the race. And with yellow flags out around the circuit, I think we're going safety car already, I'm afraid. Yep, so safety car boards out around the circuit. We're going full course caution. I do wonder whether the Seika has not been able to get going from the position at which it came to rest. Let's have a quick look. Is it still sitting in the middle of the track? It is, I'm afraid. Yeah, I thought that might be the case. So either a mechanical issue not allowing that car to start, or maybe a little bit of heat soak even in the early stages of the race. But Alan Purbrick returning to the GT Cup Championship for the first time this year. We've seen sporadic outings for them, clearly with an issue, and I would imagine that's a puncture yet for James Guess. And thankfully that's come at the right time, you could argue, because safety car is out there. On is going a new Pirelli slick tyre and should be able to get him back out without losing a lap, albeit he'll be at the very tail end of the train of cars. And of course that car has an extra 26 seconds to spend in the pits when James Guess will hand the car over to former Le Mans class winner Darren Turner. So clock continuing to tick down. Richard Neary having to ease his pace, which means that everybody's queued up behind. So Richard Neary, then the Dayglow Lamborghini of Leo Machitsky. So he is a former British GT champion, Leo Machitsky. It was a few years ago now when he secured top honours in the British GT Championship, Leo Machitsky, but it's nice to see him back in the series, and he will be competing in the British GT Championship this year. I think it's Dennis Lind he's partnered up with. Leo was British GT champion back in 2006. He also won the Blancpain amateur category consecutive years, 2018, 2019. Richard Chamberlain is in as well, I'm afraid. It looks so he's got a little bit of damage. So just one of the panels at the front of the car receiving a little bit of attention, but also sadly off is coming the rear bodywork, as though maybe there's some mechanical woes in the engine bay of that car. So such a shame for Richard Chamberlain. There's the stricken Saker being pushed out of harm's way, so that is going to, I think, just rest up against the barrier for the remainder of the race. And once that's out of harm's way, which it looks as though it's been done and the marshals are back over the barriers, should hopefully be good to go green again. So it should just be maybe a lap, couple of laps behind the safety car, and then we'll be able to get things back underway. Remember, the pit window for this one, for the cars that are in Group GTO, Group GT3 and Group GTC, they pit between the 19th and the 23rd minutes of the race. For the cars that are in Group GTB, Group GTH and Group GTA, they pit between the 23rd and the 28th minutes of the race. And if you're wondering what the individual groups are, well, Group GT3, as it says on the tin in reality, for homologated GT3 cars. Group GTO is for open specification and low volume manufacturer cars, so the likes of Richard Chamberlain's Porsche, which is a sort of a car that's been modified to various specifications over the years, and the Radicals sit in that. Group GTC is for later model Challenger Cup cars, so in other words a European specification Ferrari 488 or a Lamborghini Super Trofeo car would sit in there. Group GTB is for challenge cars again, but for earlier ones. So if you had something like an earlier Ferrari 458 in European specification, it would drop into there, or some of the Porsche 911 Cup cars drop into Group GTB. Group GTH is for GT4 homologated cars, and Group GTA is for lower specification Cup and Challenge cars and one-make cars. So that's where we see a lot of things like Ginetta G55 Super Cup cars dropping into Group GTA. So it's sort of, it's not power to weight, it's a range of combinations that dictate as to which particular groups cars sit into, and the technical people from Group Motorsport continually look at cars and if needs be, adjust them. So if they're not happy that it's correct in one group, they will move it to another. It's not a problem with that. So another lap required behind the safety car. You can see the key will still be weaving from side to side. In the background I can just see Richard Chamberlain's Porsche. There it is indeed. It's being pushed into the pit lane, I'm afraid. So Richard's still behind the wheel of it. Now, you'd have thought if the car were done and dusted, he may be undoing the seatbelts now, but for the moment he's sitting patiently behind the wheel of the car. So maybe Michelle might be able to perhaps see what's going on with the repairs to that car, and if Richard were to retire, we might, if he's able to, be able to grab a word with him to understand what the problem was, because such a shame for Richard. He had to withdraw, as Michelle alluded to at the beginning of the programme, from Donington Park. He got involved in an incident which caused damage to the car and was not repairable, sadly, so he didn't get a full weekend of racing over the 2 days that we were at Donington Park. Let's hope that he can get back out for the remainder of this race. There is the number 50 car, that's Carl Cavers, who is sharing with former Sunoco Challenge winner Lewis Plato. Lewis, who's done a good chunk of Porsche racing in the last few years, things like the Porsche Carrera Cup GB. So he's out at one of the wheel of one of the Cayman GT4s, which there are several in the field this weekend. Good to see so many Cayman GT4s on the grid. There's, I think, 4 or 5 out of the 45 cars that qualified over the course of this morning, but only one Mercedes GT3, and that's that one there. So Richard Neary still just on and off the brakes, as you can see, accelerating and braking, trying to continually keep some temperature in the brakes of these cars whilst they circulate at substantively lower speeds behind the safety car. Alan Purbrick's car well and truly up against the barriers, and that should mean that once he is over the crash barriers himself and out of harm's way, that we'll be able to get the race back underway. But it also means that we won't see the co-driver of that car out as well, of course, with Alan having retired so early on in the race. That is going to be it, I'm afraid, for David Bryce, who was scheduled to have shared that car with him. So lights are still on the safety car, which means that it's not likely to be going in at the end of this lap. The Seika is well and truly up against the barriers. It's out of harm's way, but the lights were still on the safety car, which suggests that it's going to continue round for a further lap, which it will be about to start now, and hopefully that will be the last lap that we have behind the safety car. So here it comes now, back over the start-finish line. Frustrating start really to the race. The drivers will want to get on with it, but obviously with the car stricken in the middle of the circuit, you have zero choice but to deploy the safety car. Now the course is clear though, we can start to look forward to getting things back underway. But before we get things back underway, let's head back down into the pit lane with Michelle.
The stricken Porsche of Richard Chamberlain is. So let's see if we can have a little chat and just find out what's going on. They're doing a little bit of sort of analytic work, I think, at the moment, trying to find out what the problem is. See if I can jump in. Richard, how are you doing? Why are you here already?
It didn't last very long, did it? I'm not sure. So we just doesn't seem to be any turbocharger boost pressure, so we're just having a quick look. So hopefully it's just a pipe or something, but you never know.
Oh, bless him. Richard's always so calm under pressure as well. If that was me, I think I'd be doing my nuts. I think the race was still going, but no, he's sitting here very calm, and they're obviously hoping to get the car sorted, get that turbocharger sorted so that they can get back out there. That's the benefit, of course, with this being pit stop race, is it does give a little bit more time, that if things do go wrong, you might be able to get it sorted and get back out there. Just giving the glasses a little clean as well, all important. I do hope he gets back out, but as I said, he's always very philosophical and very calm about these things, Mark.
Thanks, Michelle. Yeah, thanks for that one. Yeah, we're about to get the race, I think, back underway. Hopefully that will include Richard Chamberlain another lap or so once they can work out exactly what the problem is with his car. So the safety car will now be heading out of Stirling's. Its lights will be extinguished. You can see it in the distance, which means that we are good to go racing at the end of this one. Single file restarts. Remember, no overtaking until they get to the start-finish line as well. You can be side by side with a car, but you can't have your nose in front until you get to that control line. If you do, you've overtaken before the line, you'll get a penalty. So we get things back underway with just under 40 minutes to go. Richard Neary gets his foot down, but Leo Machitsky is trying to go with him at the wheel of the first of the two Barwell Motorsport Lamborghini Hurricanes. Turning away through the right hand, it's Alan Ballon in the green car that's there in third position. Another driver that will be really focusing on the British GT Championship. He'll be partnered with Sandy Mitchell, the champion from last year, in a few weeks' time when they come to Brands Hatch for the first round. You've just seen an enormous queue of cars and such variety that we have in the GT Cup. There's Sam Oldpass being run by Jeff Steele Racing, the mid-engine BMW, trying to pick its way through a busy section of the circuit, but already the Group GT3 and Group GTO cars are propelling themselves off the Indy circuit, out of Surtees and onto the Grand Prix circuit, where they head through the Springs Drop, Hawthorne Hill, and up towards a daunting right-hander at Hawthorne, which is where Alan Purbrick came to grief with the rotation of the Seika that brought about the safety car in the first place. So they charge their way through the right-hander at Hawthorne. There goes the GCAP Racing Porsche. There's Sam Oldpass again, looking to try and put pressure on the car that sits ahead of him. He's got Craig Wilkins behind him, Sam Oldpass, and he's got the Chris Hart, I think, Ginetta ahead. Yes, it is. Chris Hart's Ginetta ahead, and ahead of that is the number 34 Porsche, which looks subtly different with its livery this year. Richard Marsh, former British touring car racer and briefly British GT racer, behind the wheel of that for part one of the race. 6 laps completed by Richard Neary. Last time through, he posted the fastest lap of the race that we've seen so far. Battles all the way through the order. The 2.9.11s working together there as well. That's Seamus Jennings, GCAT Racing, with Nick Jones, 14 Parker Racing right behind. The two cars that are new to GT Cup for the 2021 season this weekend, but we've seen GCAT Racing out before, and Seamus Jennings, the man from Northern Ireland, almost trying to pull a move there on Stuart Proctor's McLaren. Stuart Proctor is bottled up behind the ultimate speed Matt Manderson driven Aston Martin GT3, so a fantastic fight. All of these contemporary GT3 machinery. Stuart Proctor looking for the inside line on Matt Manderson up the inside at Surtees, and should be able to go through on the exit of the corner. So on towards the next section they'll go, so down through Grim's Drop. Looks as though Seamus Jennings is also now trying to pull a move on Matt Manderson, and that's all the way around the outside at Hawthorne to take the place away. Fantastic stuff from Seamus Jennings. He's able to get himself through and ahead. That keeps him firmly inside the top 10, 8th or 9th position I think it will be now for the GCAT Racing Porsche. So 2 places lost there for Matt Manderson, and the next of the cars that's trying to attack now is the Team Parker Racing machine in the hands of Nick Jones, a former British GT champion in the GT4 Pro-Am class some years ago himself, and Scott Mulvern, who will take over that blue and sort of grey car a little bit later on. Scott, a former Formula Ford Festival winner here at Brands Hatch as well in the past. "36 minutes to go, feeding in the power." Through there goes the number 9 car of Jensen, but Michael Igo, I'm afraid to say, though in the pit lane, the car that started from the pit lane is back in the pit lane once more, with issues with the front left corner of the car by the look of things. Keane looking on and offering advice to the mechanic there as to what the problem is. All of the time on WPI Motorsport car, which was second quickest in qualifying, is dropping way down through the order. Sitting patiently behind the wheel, but all of the time just keep dropping right the way down towards the bottom of the 45 cars that originally started. So 35 minutes of the race to go, and out front now it's a Lamborghini 1-2. Leo Machitsky and Adam Ballon are first and second, and that is because the number 88 car of Richard Neary has dropped down through the order somewhere. So not sure what happened to Richard Neary. That car is in the pit lane now. It's before the pit window opens, so there must be an issue with that car as well in the pit lane somewhere, because he's not out there. It's a Lamborghini 1-2. It's a Barwell Motorsport 1-2. It's Leo Machitsky ahead of Adam Ballon. There comes Richard Neary back through pit lane to exit. So whatever the problem was, it was a quick fix hopefully for the Mercedes. That's going to drop that way. That car way down through the order. Radical of Steve Burgess is third. 4th place is John Dillon, fighting away with Lucky Kira. Both of those cars running in Group GT3. So it's GT3 Lamborghinis, 1st and 2nd. 4th and 5th at the moment. The interloper in it all is Steve Burgess with his Radical RXC, who is leading Group GTO and lies 3rd overall. Here comes the Radical now towards us. But the fight is on between the two teammates. There goes Steve Burgess running in 3rd place but leading the group. Then another 2 GT3 Lamborghinis of John Dillon and Lucky Kira sitting behind. Lucky Kira, who announced earlier on this week he'll be racing not just in GT Cup for the full season but also in British GT. Then we've got the next of the Porsches will be the next one through, which is going to be Seamus Jennings, who is 7th. Nick Jones in the other Porsche is 8th. Graham Tilley in the Nissan is 9th. And completing the top 10 now is Matt Manderson, who's lost a further place by the look of things. Yeah, Graham Tilley in the Nissan's gone through. Great fight going on for 4th and 5th position. John Dillon and Lucky Kira absolutely together. The 2 Lamborghinis. John Dillon just ahead. Lucky Kira with his lights ablaze, giving John Dillon a thing or two to think about. Over the start-finish start now go. John Dillon had a great season in GT Cup last year when he was running in Group GTC. And it's so good to see John back out this year. He was the sprint champion last year and was the winner of Group GTC. And at the moment has got his hands rather full of that Simon Green Motorsport Lamborghini of Lucky Kira that sits behind. Lucky's one of those drivers who seems to be out racing something, somewhere, every weekend. breaking out the end of the Cooper Straight towards Surtees corner. Lucky Kira getting ever closer to John Dillon. There was a bumper width between the pair of them when they got towards the apex of Surtees corner. They'll floor the throttle and start to propel the cars down through Pilgrim's Drop and Hawthorne Hill up towards the right-hander at Hawthorne. Remember, this is the fight for 4th and 5th place at this stage. 32 minutes of the race still to go, which means the pit window is going to be opening in around about 60 seconds time for the more powerful cars. So any cars in Group GTO, Group GT3 or Group GTC with 31 minutes to go can come in and start to conduct their pit stops. And the pit window only stays open for 4 minutes for them, so it's a very short pit window. A couple of laps is all. And if I were Lucky Kira, I think I'd come in early, because at the moment he looks the quicker of the two, but he just can't find his way past John Dillon. John Dillon will hand over to pro driver Phil Quaife for part 2 of the race, but the black Lamborghini behind, Lucky Kira, he will remain on board for part 2 of the race. He's driving solo. The braking area for Paddock Hill Bend. Lucky Kira takes a much wider sweep into the corner to try and get a bit more momentum coming off it, but he's too far back when they get in towards the braking area for Druids. Again, wider sweep to try and cut back on the exit and get a bit more momentum coming off the corner, but it's just not working for him at this stage. John Dillon is doing everything right. He's sort of parking the car on the apex of the corner, just making sure he gets cleanly off it. And around Brands Hatch, with it being such a narrow and challenging circuit, it is not easy to overtake, particularly in contemporary GT machinery. There is Charlotte Gilbert, I'm afraid. A rotation for the Top Cats Racing Marcos Mantis. That looks as though it might be on the exit of Stirling's. Indeed it is, yep. So that's the Marcos. Thankfully the wheels weren't in the gravel, so following that quick mistake, back into the race for Charlotte Gilbert. So the window is now open in theory, so we can start to see some of the GT3 machinery coming into the pit lane. Remember, there's success seconds to worry about as well, depending on how cars got on at Donington Park, or if they are new entries into the championship for this weekend, they also pick up success seconds. So for the car that's leading, which is Leo Machitsky, an extra 5 seconds in the pit lane, so he'll be stationary for 65 seconds. For Adam Ballon, who's second in the race, an extra 5 seconds as well. For the car that's third in the race, Steve Burgess, when he gives away to Ben Dimmock, that will have an extra 20 seconds in the pit lane. The Royal Motorsport run Radical. Into the pit lane comes Charlotte Gilbert, having had her spin and rotation. Now she runs in Group GTB, so this is before the Group GTB pit window opens, so this is an unscheduled pit stop for Charlotte, I'm afraid, who is shaking her head and clearly looks a little bit disgruntled with something that's gone on. Richard Marsh still pressing on at the wheel for number 34 Group GTB Porsche. That's the Group GTB leader at the moment, but Sam Alpas was right behind it, and that is for the lead of the group. Into the pit lane comes Richard Neary, not for the first time of course. There was that unscheduled pit stop whilst he was leading, which dropped him off the lead. Puncture as well on that car on the right rear corner, but that has come at the right time for Richard Neary, because he can now pit and switch drivers, and Sam can take over should they wish, because the pit window is open for them. James doing a really good job for Team Parker Racing, keeping Stuart Proctor absolutely within the crosshairs, whilst just managing to have enough daylight between himself and the Nissan of Graham Tilley that sits behind. So Nick Jones, new car for him for this season, the Porsche GT3. Is he going to have a quick nibble? Thought about it and decided that discretion was the better part of valour, so still sits behind Stuart Proctor, whilst Graham Tilley in the TechServe supported Nissan is not that far behind. Now we might start to see a few peel their way into the pit lane shortly. All of these do, Stuart Proctor, Nick Jones, Graham Tilley, all remain out at this stage. Into the pit lane we have seen Steve Burgess come in, so that's the Radical that was running in third position. That car has come into the pit lane, so that now means that Stuart Proctor moves up into 6th, Nick Jones in the blue Porsches up into 7th, Graham Tilley is up into 8th now, but that should cycle itself back through once we've gone through all of the pit stops. At the end of this lap, we really want to be getting all of the GT3 cars in, because the pit window closes for them after the 23rd minute of the race, which is coming up very shortly. In other words, 27 minutes to go is when the pit window will close for GT3 cars, so they're going to have to come in soon. Now, Richard Neary has pitted, and I think has handed the car over to Sam. He is as you can see, already having been lapped by our race leader Leo Machitsky, who's also fighting his way through Group GTH traffic. James Guess at the wheel of the Aston Martin moves out of the way. And as they now start to head over the start-finish line, still more traffic to deal with. This time Adam Ballon should deal with James Guess in a straight line. Far more powerful GT3 car sides past the GT4 Aston Martin on the run towards Paddock Hill Bend. Team Aber Mercedes follows through as well. That car having dropped well out of contention now following its unscheduled pit stop, and even when it came into the pits for the second time it was still carrying the puncture, wasn't it, on the left rear. So it's really been a day to forget so far for Sam and Richard Neary. Richard being the father, Sam being his son, just 19 years of age. BRDC rising star now as well, as we've heard. More traffic for Adam Ballon to deal with here. It's another one of the Aston Martins. It's a Century Motorsport car of David Holloway that's about to be lapped by the second place Aston Martin. And there, Lucky Kira finally trying to unlock the door and makes it stick as well on John Dillon. Great stuff. That is a change for third position there. You'd never guess this wasn't the battle for a podium place, really. Such a shame that Mercedes lost so much time earlier on, because whatever the problem was with it, they clearly got it sorted. And Ballon running in second overall under pressure. Here's David Holloway at the wheel of the Century Motorsport Aston Martin. Raises the dust as he heads round through Sheen Curve and up towards the left-hander at Stirling's, which was where Charlotte Gilbert had a little spin a few laps ago. Now we should start to see the cars in Group GTB, Group GTH and Group GTA start to file their way into the pit lane before too much longer. The remaining cars from the first group, that being Group GTB, Group GTH, Group GTO, Group GT3, Group GTC all come in. There we can see the change. Number 41, James Simons getting out, Fraser Smart getting on board. The car behind, which is Leo Machitsky, he will stay on board. He's driving solo. Next of the cars comes in as well, which is going to be John Dillon to hand over to Phil Quaife. And now you can see all of the GT3 cars filing in. Stuart Proctor in the background to hand over to his son Lewis Proctor in the McLaren. Nick Jones coming in ready to hand over to his regular teammate Scott Mulvern. Former Formula Ford Festival winner Graham Tilley is in, hand over not to Will Tregertha this weekend, but Senan Fielding about to jump on board. John Seal to hand over to Abby Eaton, and also I think that was the Ultimate Speed Aston Martin that was trundling its way down the pit lane as well. That'll be Matt Manderson ready to hand over to Mike Brown for part 2 of the race. So John Seal clambers out, Abby Eaton will get on board, whilst Adam Ballon still stays out there at the moment. Now, my reading of the regulations, one-day pit stop format, Group 1, which is Group GTO, Group GT3, Group GTC, the pit stop must be carried out between the 19th and the 23rd minutes of the race. Well, if that's the case, we are past the 23rd minute of the race and we have not seen that number 11 Lamborghini come in as yet. Here it comes now. So into the pit lane comes the Lamborghini. Paul Bailey is in to hand over to Ross Wiley. Ross Wiley, another former British GT champion. He was the British GT4 champion a couple of years ago in the Beechdean Aston Martin. He was sharing with Jake Giddings. But a very busy pit lane, and remember, this is just for half of the field in reality. The other half still is yet to pit. So down the pit lane comes Lucky Kira. Down the pit lane comes Seamus Jennings to hand over to Greg Caton. The number 9 car, which is going to be Jensen Lunn, will have picked up the lead of the race at this stage, but it hasn't pitted, so it will have to come in at the end of this lap, and Warren Gilbert should be scheduled to get on board that car. And this is the overall championship leading car as well. So after Donington Park, 97 points for Jensen Lunn and Warren Gilbert. They won their group on 3 occasions at Donington Park. They finished second on the other occasion as well, so not quite maximum points, but it was a solid weekend for them at the wheel of this new Lamborghini for Top Gas Racing. Lamborghini Huracan. They ran a Gallardo a couple of seasons ago when Neil Huggins was driving it, but nice to see a more contemporary Lamborghini. Now the number 63 car of Leo Machitsky, traffic to deal with here, trying to work his way past the GT4 cars. There was almost side-to-side contact there as he was trying to squeeze one of the GT4 cars. I'm not sure it was the Lewis Plato car, but the GT3 car trying to get past the GT4s. Sam Neary pushing on as well, but remember that Mercedes is a long way off the pace following its 2 visits to the pit stops. Back out of the pit lane comes Adam Ballon, directly ahead of Lewis Plato. Lewis Plato therefore has to adjust his line through Paddock Hill Bend, which now means that Matt Armstrong is looking to try and gain a place. So no matter where you look, there are squabbles to be had in GT Cup, and rightly so, with so many cars on the grid and the hard work that goes into equalising the cars in terms of their performances and the groups that they sit in. Now at the moment, the BMW of Sam Alpass has picked up the lead. Of course, he is a car that runs in Group GTB, so their pit window is only just about to open now. Sam Neary, is he going to have a nibble here on Leo Machitsky? Thought about it, almost got the Aber Mercedes up the inside of the Barwell Motorsport Lamborghini. They go past Andy Roby's Marcos as they head up towards Westfield Corner. No time really lost from either of them there. Andy Roby was watching his mirrors, just making sure he left enough of a gap for the two quick GT3 cars to feed their way through. And that's the difficulty. I spoke about traffic management earlier on. You don't want to lose time through the back markers, but you can't afford to trip over them at the same time. It's a very, very fine balance between getting it right and getting it wrong, and either ending your race or ending the car you were trying to get past. So next to the cars is Nick Phelps, I think, that we're going to deal with now, at the wheel of his Porsche 911. Yeah, the Group GTB car of Nick Phelps. Through goes Leo Machitsky, and there goes Sam Neary, also diving up the inside of the Mercedes at the same time. That'll be Marcus Clutton. Has been pushed back into the garage there. That looked like the 24/7 Motorsport Porsche, which would be James Hillary, who was scheduled to have taken over that from David Franklin, but I'm not sure he'll get the chance. So we've still got Sam Alpass leading the race. What we're looking at here is Leo Machitsky, who is in 11th position following his pit stops, coming under pressure from the number 88 Mercedes, which is going to be Sam Neary behind the wheel. The problems that car has had, the number 88 Mercedes is running down in 36th position, would you believe, at the moment. Should gain more places as the race wears on. Still plenty of time, 20 minutes. As I said earlier, it's such a shame that is not a battle for the lead in reality. Sam Neary, it's not going to stop him pushing as hard as he can, though. It's a point to be made here. Into the pit lane comes the first of the cars for Group 2, so it's now the cars that are running in Group GTH, Group GTB, Group GTA that come in. So into the pit lane comes the number 90 car, that's Mike Price, to hand over to former British GT and Blancpain racer Callum McLeod. Also into the pit lane came Richard Marsh to hand over to Sam Randon. That's another important pit stop as well, because those two lie 4th in the championship standings, having had a non-finish in the first race at Donington Park. I think it was Sam that put it into the gravel trap, but they won their Group GTB in the other 3 races of the weekend. The battle of the Porsche Caymans still continues as well, but they're all going to file their way into the pit lane now. So you can see now all this second batch of cars coming in, including Charlotte Gilbert. At the front of the queue is the dark blue Ginetta, which will be Russ Lindsay about to take over from Patrick Collins. Mo Ritson is in as well, former Junior Saloon Car racer, at the wheel of number 90 McLaren. We'll dive out of that, and it will be Tom Rawlings that will take over it. But this intriguing battle still. Leo Machitsky under enormous pressure from Sam Neary, but just Sam cannot find his way through, sitting in the shadows of the Barwell prepared car all of the time. This, in theory, will be the car that will take up the lead of the race once everybody has pitted. But for the moment, Leo Machitsky is showing in 6th position, trotting his way down pit lane. That's the Team Hard racing car of Sam Randon. Also the Scott Sport Ginetta, that will now have Aaron Scott on board rather than Craig Wilkins. The Orange Racing with JMH Automotive McLaren, which will be Josh Jackson, just heading down pit road as well. And all the time cars in Group 2 are pitting, it's allowing this Lamborghini of Leo Machitsky to work his way further up through the order, so he's now up into 4th position. But the 3 cars that are ahead of him all have not pitted as yet, so number 212 Ginetta picks up the lead of the race from Sam Alpass, because Sam Alpass does come in finally. Simon Orange is running 2nd in the race but hasn't pitted. Henry Dawes is 3rd, Carnival 106 but hasn't pitted, and Leo Machitsky in 4th place is the first of the pit stoppers now. In fact, this is the race leader here, just coming towards us, the Ginetta. So the number 212 Ginetta of Chris Hart leading the race. Sam Randon's Porsche sitting behind it, will be a full lap adrift of it, but Sam has just got behind the wheel of that car, so it has conducted its pit stop, the Team Hard Racing Porsche, that lies 4th overall in the championship standings. Newly liveried car for this weekend. So through Sheen Curve up towards the left-hander at Stirling's, starting to accelerate their way back down the straight again. Sam Randon is about to side his way past Chris Hart, who I think will be destined for the pit lane at the end of this lap, possibly the Make It Happen Racing Ginetta. Is it going to peel its way into the pit lane? Yes, it does. So into the pit lane comes the Ginetta. That will give up the lead of the race. Stephen Walton will jump on board that car for part 2 of the race. They come into the pit lane just as Nick Phelps pulls out directly ahead of them. So they've compromised their run into the pits by too much. They have to stick to the pit lane speed limit all the way down. And that, I'm afraid to say, is Tom Rawlings. He's only just taken over the car from Mo Ritson. The Balfe Motorsport McLaren GT4 will rejoin. Hopefully it's not caused too much damage to a front splitter heading through the gravel trap and the grass. But for Tom Rawlings, yeah, he's only probably on his first or maybe second lap since taking over the car from former junior saloon car racer Mo Ritson. But slight mistake through Sheen Curve and typical consequence really, through the gravel then on the exit onto the grass and try and get it tidied up by the time you get to Stirling's, which is what he just about managed to do. So 16 minutes of the race to go. Ross Wiley this is, under pressure from Lewis Proctor, so it's a Ferrari that runs in Group GTO, under pressure from a Group GT3 car of Lewis Proctor, who should fairly easily be able to go through. The Ferrari runs in Group GTO, but really is a Group GTC car, but they are running it in Group GTO this weekend to accumulate points in that group because they want the Brabham back for Snetterton. It should be fixed following its engine woes at Donington, and what they've done for the last couple of races is run that Ferrari in a group which it's really not powerful enough for, but it's adding to their championship tally and allows them to bring back the Brabham, who still have scooped up some points in the group, which might put them in a handy position at the end of the season potentially. So not unsurprisingly, the far more powerful McLaren 720 SGT3 of Lewis Proctor fairly easily picks off the Ferrari, and also the next of the Lamborghinis squeezes its way through as well. That's the number 96 car that's now taken over by pro driver Stuart Hall for part 2 of the race. And a bit about traffic management I was talking about. This is the key part of the race now, because all of the cars are strung out to a degree. There's still battles on circuit, but we've now got quicker cars lapping slower cars all of the time, lap after lap after lap. There's something to deal with, and as the quicker car you don't want to lose time, as the slower car you don't really want to ease off either, because you want to make sure that you're as close as you can be to the rest of the competitors in your group. And now we've cycled all the way through the pit stops. Back into the lead of the race has gone Leo Machitsky at the wheel of the number 63 Barwell Motorsport run Lamborghini. I'll give you a full rundown of the order in the next lap once all of the pit stops have been completed. We'll also endeavour to pick up the group leaders for you as well, and any group battles that are going on, because there are still some great fights going out there on circuit at this stage. Now that is former championship winning car in the pit lane. That is John Whitehouse giving way to Steve Ruston for part 2 of the race. They were GT Cup champions back in 2020. The 2 Team Orange cars together as well. So that's Josh Jackson and Simon Orange together. Right behind them is Ian Duggan, and then Ross Wiley at the wheel of the Ferrari. So this is the Ferrari that should be able to pick off the Ginettas. Ginettas running in Group GTA, the McLaren, the orange McLaren, running in Group GTH because it's a GT4 car. Now, there's Machitsky, there's the race leader. That's Adam Ballon at the wheel of the green Lamborghini in second position. There's third, which is Phil Quaife, you can just see coming through. So this is the second place car of Adam Ballon. One of the co-founders of the Innocent Smoothie brand was Adam Ballon. Has been racing GT Cup for the last couple of seasons, originally in GT4 spec cars, then GT3s. First cut his teeth though in the Lotus Cup UK, did Adam Ballon. He was partnered by Phil Keane in the championship last year. He's got reigning British GT champion Sandy Mitchell on board with him as his co-driver for 2021. But traffic to be dealt with by Leo Machitsky. Works his way past Sam Randon's car. Brakes come on briefly on the Lamborghini as it heads up towards Westfield Corner. So 63 car, former British GT champion, twice a Blancpain champion, Leo Machitsky leading the race. Adam Ballon sitting there in second position at the wheel of the sister car to it. So Mark Lemmer, the man behind Barwell Motorsport, will be very pleased indeed with the way things are going for his two drivers. But as ever, traffic to be dealt with. So through goes Leo Machitsky past Bradley Ellis, who is on board the Aston Martin that was started by David Holloway. Bradley Ellis, yet another former British GT champion. Bradley Ellis, he was the British GT champion back in 2007. That was at the speed of a Dodge Viper when they were the car to have. Now that is the exit of Graham Hill Bend, and that looks like Lucky Keir, I'm afraid, facing the wrong way. Lucky was running in 8th position, but has had a problem with the car, which has rotated it round through 90 degrees. The nose of the car is on the track, the rear of the car is just over the curbs, and what we really need to do is Lucky to fire that car back into life, because if he doesn't, that is certainly going to have to bring out a safety car. So let's just hope he's waiting for a gap in the traffic and get going. Right, there we go. So the engine's running. A bit of bodywork is that just at the front of the car? Is that, no, that looks like that could be fluid potentially. And Lucky Keir is not in the safest of places, and there's only so long they can leave that car there covering it with yellows before they have to make a decision as to what to do. So localised yellow flags at that point of the circuit. But if Lucky doesn't get the car rolling soon, that's going to have to be a full course caution and therefore a safety car. But localised yellows for the moment will suffice. Now, as for the order then at this stage, 11 minutes of the race to go. Number 63 there leads the race, Leo Machitsky. But look at his mirrors. His teammate, number 11, Adam Ballon, is absolutely with him. The third at the moment is this car here, the number 61 Lamborghini just going through. Fourth is the McLaren just behind it, which is now in the hands of Lewis Proctor, the number 36 car being run by Balfe Motorsport. All of those cars running Group GT3. Fifth is the Nissan, that will have Senan Fielding on board for it. Sixth is going to be Greg Caton, and I think we are going full course caution. Yet safety car is coming out, I'm afraid, because of the stricken Lamborghini of Lucky Keir down there at Graham Hill Bend. He's not been able to get the car going. Was running in 8th position, but for Lucky, rather unlucky, isn't it? He's going to be tumbling down through the order and could well be into retirement in the race, I'm afraid to say. So we've guided you through what the top 6 cars. Yeah, Greg Caton it is that's there in 6th place. 7th place is another GT3 car. Scott Mulvern, former Formula Ford Festival winner and British Formula Ford champion, was also Pro-Am champion in the British GT Championship GT4 in 2018-2019, I think it was. In 8th place, that's the Group GTO leader in 8th place, the number 55 Lamborghini that John Seal started and now has the very rapid young Abby Eaton on board. Abby, who's scheduled to be racing in the W Series, the all-female single-seater series that is going to be supporting Grand Prix in 2021. 9th place is number 47, which is Mike Brown, and completing the top 10, that's the Group GTC leading car, which was started by Jensen Lunn, and now the Top Cats Racing Lamborghini Super Trofeo has Warren Gilbert on board for it, so that's the Group GTC leader. In 11th place is the Group GTB leading car, that's the number 34 Porsche, that's now Sam Randon that is driving it. Group GTA is being led by the Century Motorsports Ginetta G55 Super Cup car of Henry Dawes, who's running there in 15th position. And Group GTH, just to give you that one as the safety car peels its way back in, is going to be headed by the number 1 McLaren at this stage, and that is Josh Jackson. So here we go, Phil Quaife attacking Adam Ballon for 2nd place. The car goes up the inside and Lewis Proctor follows through, so Adam Ballon drops from 2nd to 4th on the restart. Leo Machitsky leads, Phil Quaife up into 2nd, Lewis Proctor in the McLaren up into 3rd, and I'm afraid to say Adam Ballon was a little bit slow at the restart there, so he's not concentrating on the full season, whereas the likes of Phil Quaife certainly is, having taken over that car from John Dillon. So they'll be wanting to score maximum championship points to add towards their tally after a reasonably solid weekend at Donington Park. But we didn't see them on the podium in any of the races. They were 4th in a couple of them. They finished 5th in another. But at the moment, they're 3rd on the road. In fact, 2nd on the road now. And looking to try and attack for the overall race lead. Closing in on Leo Machitsky. Lamborghini, McLaren. Leo Machitsky leads. Phil Quaife full in his mirrors. Then Lewis Proctor sitting behind, Adam Ballon having lost a little bit more time at the wheel of the 4th place Lamborghini, so it's 3 for the lead of the race. 8 minutes to go, still traffic I'm sure to deal with, not so much at the moment because of the brief safety car period, but another few laps time there will be traffic to deal with. And that could be the catalyst for Phil Quaife to try something here. Bottled up behind the race-leading Barwell car is his. He turns his way for the 25th time of asking through Clearways, Clark Curve, and on towards the Brabham Straight, the start-finish straight here at Brands Hatch. That's Marcus Clutton all over the grass, rejoining in the middle of a pack. Another former British GT champion in the Supersport class some years ago was Marcus. Lewis Proctor thought about having a quick go there for second place. The door was open, it was very tempting, but no, just decided that maybe for the moment we'll just see as to what Phil Quaife is going to do. Phil Quaife has sort of turned a little bit away from attacking Leo Machitsky now and has just sort of dropped back by an extra car length. Maybe it's just a part of the circuit that maybe doesn't quite have the car set up to his liking for, and he's a bit quicker out through the back section. As Phil's saying, he's not raced on the Grand Prix circuit here at Brands Hatch since 2017, he was telling me earlier on, so it's about 4 years since he was last on the Grand Prix circuit here. And his first race on the Grand Prix circuit in a GT3 spec car. So Machitsky leads, Phil Quaife second, Lewis Proctor still third, still absolutely together, 6.5 minutes of the race to go. Car that leads though is only in the invitation class, as is Lewis Proctor behind actually, so maximum championship points would go to Phil Quaife, even if he stays where he is on the road at the moment. So that's Greg Caton for GCAT Racing, closing in on Ian Duggan's Ginetta. Through goes the more powerful GT3 Porsche, ahead of the Group GTA Ginetta that sits behind. Simon Orange picking off Bradley Ellis, who might have a problem because that certainly looks to be going a little bit slower than I expected in the hands of Bradley Ellis, that Aston Martin. So he can stay out of the way. Yes, he is. He's staying out of the way of everybody. That is an Aston Martin that has problems for me, because Bradley Ellis is not a slow driver, and that Aston Martin, just the body language of it, to me suggests there's an issue. Two Porsches, the two GT3 spec cars over the start-finish line. This is 6th and 7th positions overall. Scott Mulvern in the SD Sealants car, trying to hunt down the GCAT Racing car of Greg Caton that sits ahead. In the first stage of the race, Seamus Jennings was behind the wheel of the GCAT Racing Porsche and Nick Jones was behind him, so these two cars have been pretty much inseparable throughout the whole course of the race, the 45 minutes that have preceded this so far. And at the moment, they are fighting over 6th and 7th in the race overall, 6th and 7th in Group GT3 as well. So GT3 cars are filling the first 7 places at the moment. The first non-GT3 car we've got is the Group GTO Abbey Eaton Lamborghini that's there in 8th position. And over the start-finish line comes the number 82 Feathers Motorsport car in the hands of Darren Turner. He is bottled up behind the number 23 car, which is Ollie Webb, former European Le Mans Series racer Ollie Webb. And Darren Turner, former Le Mans winner of course, was a factory Aston Martin driver, a hugely successful factory Aston Martin driver. Darren Turner, having spent a bit of time in the British Touring Car Championship as well, didn't he, Darren? So again, no matter where you look, we were saying on the build-up to the programme, no matter where you look, battles going on, and this is the battle for the lead. Adam Ballon has managed to catch up now, he wants to join in the fun, so it's sort of 3 for the lead and Adam Ballon just a little bit further back. Leo Machitsky didn't quite grab the apex there, turning his way through Graham Hill Bend, so Phil Quaife sees an opportunity but then needs to fend off the attack that comes from behind of Lewis Proctor. Almost a little bit of contact between the pair of them. Leo Machitsky gets sort of bumped out the way slightly. Now, was that going into yellow flag zone there? Because Henry Dawes, who was leading Group GTA, is often in the gravel there at Surtees Corner, and it may well be that overtaking and yellow flags happen at the same time. Not for me to say, but what I can tell you is that Lewis Proctor on the road has picked up the lead of the race through all of that. Phil Quaife is in second. Leo Machitsky in the leading Barwell car is now down into 3rd position. Adam Ballon is there in 4th place, and sitting behind them on the road, but of course having lost lots of time early on, is Sam Neary at the wheel of the Mercedes. But that number 88 Mercedes is running a lap adrift and is currently in 11th position, albeit it has got the fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 25.669 being the fastest lap of the race, and that was set by Sam Neary very early on into his stint. So 3 minutes to go, so on to the anti-penultimate lap, such as the lap times. There'll be time for the lap they've started and 2 more thereafter. Sam Neary nipping at the heels of Adam Ballon, but this is purely just to unlap himself. If Mercedes goes through, it won't make a great deal of difference, but for pride and and Sam at experience, only 19 years of age still is Sam, still learning his trade, was announced just earlier on this week as being a BRDC Rising Star, which gives him full BRDC membership rights, but more importantly it's the training and the mentoring programme that the British Racing Drivers Club put you through that really helps. Yet waved yellow flags down there at Surtees, so yeah, Henry Dawes being covered now by waved yellow flags. When the overtake happened, were the flags out? I simply don't know. So 2 minutes just over of the race to go. Some of the battles have just calmed down now. This is the Group GTC leading Lamborghini that we saw. That was Warren Gilbert just coming up to shot now. And that means that for a car that is currently leading the overall championship standings, yes, it's early stages, yes, it's only a single point it leads by coming into this race, but the important thing is win your group, and at the moment that looks as though that's what Top Cats Racing are going to be doing again. Jensen Lunn and Warren Gilbert are running 10th overall at the wheel of the number 9 Lamborghini, but leading their group, so potentially maximum championship points to add to their tally after this one if they keep it where it is for the next minute and 40 seconds. Druids up towards the braking area for the hairpin at the top of the hill, so out of Paddock Hill End up towards Druids. Leo Machitsky seems to be struggling with the car a bit more now. The number 63 Lamborghini just seems to be struggling towards the end of the race. So maybe the way they'd set it up was to be really strong at the start of the race, but just towards the end it's now struggling, because I think Sam Neary's going to pick his pocket, as he thinks better of it as they head towards the braking area for Surtees. Towards the Grand Prix circuit once more, so Pilgrim's drop. There we'll go. Leo Machitsky all of the time. That Dayglow Lamborghini coming under pressure from the Mercedes, which lost so much time earlier on. That's why it's no longer on the lead lap. But certainly in the hands of Sam Neary, just going to show the ultimate pace they would have had they have had the roll of the dice a bit more in this race. Traffic to deal with though. Next to the cars he's going to want to try and squeeze his way through is going to be Adam Carroll. We were talking about this record-breaking grid, weren't we, at Brands Hatch for the GT Cup Championship. Well, the car they've just gone by, Adam Carroll, was winning the A1 GP Series that weekend. We last had a full capacity grid here at Brands Hatch. So on to the last lap of the race we will see our cars go. This is still Leo Machitsky in 4th position, still with the car that is running in 11th position, Sam Neary behind. Sam certainly looks as though he's the quicker of the two at the moment, just can't find his way through is the difficulty. Again up towards Druids, too far away. Thundering noise of the Mercedes compared to the howl almost of the Lamborghini Huracan. Already no way out of Graham Hill Bend, you can just see a little bit of oversteer on the exit of the corner there for Leo Machitsky just as the back end started to come around, but of course traction control will kick in and bring the back end of the car back under his spell once more. So they really start to stretch their legs again onto the Grand Prix circuit. More traffic to deal with though by the end of this race without question, and Sam Neary is running out of opportunities here. So GTC leading Lamborghini once more, turning its way through Westfield Corner. But for our race leader, which is the number 36 McLaren of Lewis Proctor, we'll be heading towards the checkered flag very shortly. Did Sam Neary make it stick? I think he did in the end, I think he did make it stick in the end when his own took his way through. No, he didn't quite make it stick in the end. So for our race leaders, it's going to be the number 36 Stewart and Lewis Proctor driven McLaren that is going to take up the checkered flag and claim the win in round 5 of the 2021 GT Cup Championship. John Dillon and Phil Quaife come through in 2nd place. Leo Machitsky, oh crumbs, that was close on the run to the line. Leo Machitsky was under pressure from Senan Fielding, and Senan Fielding almost had 2 wheels on the grass heading towards the checkered flag. The wing mirrors were almost scraping the pit wall as they came towards the checkered flag. And did he make it? No, according to the timing screens, by 17 1/1000ths of a second he did not make it, and I think conversations might be going on there between Senan Fielding and Leo Machitsky as to what happened on the run to the line. One of them clearly feels a little bit aggrieved, but Senan Fielding was catching all of the time the cars that lay ahead, because Leo Machitsky was, I think, struggling towards the end of the race. He got caught by Sam Neary. Sam Neary was understandably wanting to try and push as hard as he could, and they slowed each other down, which allowed that Nissan to catch them in the end. And on the charge to the line, well, yeah, why not? Why would you not try and do it? It got tight for sure, because you're always going to squeeze, but it looked to get very tight. I would not want to have been the man with the checkered flag, because that Nissan certainly had two wheels on the grass, and its wing mirrors, as I say, almost scraping the pit wall. It got that close. But they survived, and they could talk about it afterwards. So the cars feeding their way into the paddock area, ready for what will be a quick turnaround, really, because these cars will be back out again, don't forget, for round 6 of the championship just later on this afternoon. The race is scheduled to get underway. The red lights are due to go off, and the race gets underway at 4:05, so it'll be about 5:24 where we'll be streaming things live again. But what I could probably do is just guide you through the results of what was a fairly frantic first race, which was interrupted by a couple of safety car periods as well. The first one because of the stricken Saker that had a rotation at Hawthorne while Alan Purbrick was driving the car, stranded facing the wrong way in the middle of the circuit. No choice but to bring out the safety car. That lasted for 3 or 4 laps, and then the brief safety car period was because of the unfortunate Lucky Kira's Lamborghini, which had a spin down at Graham Hill Bend, and again was sort of 90 degrees to the circuit, stricken there, and looked as though he was struggling to get going. He did get going in the end, but it was rather frustratingly just as the safety car came out. So Lucky Kira was classified 36th in the end of that race. Otherwise it would have been a solid old result for him. So the car's being pushed back into the pit lane area. Not all of them are in the garages. The likes of those 2 Barwell Motorsport Lamborghinis are in the outer paddock. There's not room to cram them all into the pit lane, so those that are maybe just visiting the GT Cup just for this weekend are not afforded one of the garages. They are asked if they could just deal with it on the outside area of the paddocks. That's where Barwell Motorsport have based themselves, and some of the other teams are running an invitation class for this weekend. So busy old race for Leo Machitsky out of the car, and is, I think, going to have a quick chat to his teammate Adam Ballon. The two of those will be racing for Barwell Motorsport in the British GT Championship. Leo Machitsky, former champion, partnered up with Dennis Lind, the Danish driver for this year. And for Adam Ballon, to the right of your screens, he is partnered up with the champion from last year, Sandy Mitchell, who secured that championship in 2021 when he was racing with former British touring car star Rob Collard. So what we can do is, in the meantime, we can hand you downstairs to Michelle Livings, who I think is going to chat to some of the drivers down there in pit lane.
Oh, it looked a fantastic race for you. Enjoy it?
Yeah, it was good fun. I think we should still be leading.
Oh, yeah. Mask on.
We got overtaken under 2 waved yellows into 30s, I think, by the grey and blue Lamborghini and the McLaren, but it wasn't a move. It was on the yellow, so I knew that I had to slow down for the double yellow, and they took the opportunity. I don't think they saw they were battling between themselves, so I think it was a genuine mistake. So, but there was some contact with that as well.
Okay.
So, but other than that, yeah, it was good fun.
Brilliant. Well done.
Thank you.
Fantastic result. There you go. So I don't know, Mark, if you can tell us more about what happened there.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the time on commentary, Michelle, I did say, you know, it looked as though there was a car in the gravel. It was Henry Dawes' Ginetta that was in the gravel, but I couldn't see whether there were yellow flags out at the time. But from what Leo was saying, yes, there perhaps were, and that will get looked into, as is always the case. As Leo said, a genuine error, and the officials will look at that, and if needs be, they will amend the results.
Absolutely. So I don't know if we can head now. I was going to try and find, actually, the Proctors, but I think we're going elsewhere now.
While Michelle is wondering to look for the Proctors, chip in, Michelle, if you get somebody. I'm just going to rattle through the top 10 and we'll pick out the group leaders. So the win on the road at least went the way of the number 36 McLaren of Stuart and Lewis Proctor. Second on the road was the number 61 Ferrari of John Dillon and Phil Quay. Third, we've just heard from him, number 63 Leo Machitsky for Barwell Motorsport. Fourth was number 4 Graham Tilley and Stenham Fielding. Fifth was number 11 Adam Ballon, and sixth was number 33, which was Seamus Jennings and Greg Caton. All of those are in Group GT3. The winner of Group GTO was in 8th position, number 55 John Seal and Abby Eaton. claimed the win in that one. Group GTC winners were 10th, the number 9 Lamborghini of Warren Gilbert and Jensen Lunn. Group GTB winner in the end was the number 38 BMW of Sam Alpas. The Group GTA winner was the number 80 Ginetta of Craig Wilkins and Aaron Scott. And the Group GTH winner was the number 1 McLaren in the hands of Josh Jackson. And I think that gives you all of the group winners, Michelle. I'm not sure whether you're going to get the chance to chat to any more drivers or whether that's going to be it, and we'll be back with more later on.
Hello, right, I'm here with the number 61. Is that? I'm chasing you. Come here. So, brilliant result for you in that race, really, in terms of the overall, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I obviously started the race, and the start was a little bit bumping and banging, but I got away. The faster guys got away at the start, and I just kept my head down, kept going, hitting it all the apexes, making sure that I kept the car on the track, brought it into the pits, and Phil took over, and yeah, here we are.
Fantastic. Well, congratulations. Right, well, we're going to have to leave it there, I'm afraid, because that's it for our first race. As Mark was saying, we've got another one for you, number 6, which is coming up just before 4 o'clock. So keep an eye on all the socials, and we'll see you back here in a few hours.